People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we are back, and this week's episode is awesome. I've been looking forward to this one. Somehow, some way, I think through my publicist, we got a hold of this guy. We became friends with him, and we have so many things we've been talking about. Some irons in the fire, some ideas going back and forth, and we can't tell you too much, but I want to introduce the world to my friend Dave Palmer. He is a producer, an animator, and a director. You've known him from Backyardigans and Blues Clues, and I have a whole list of stuff on IMDb. But everybody, we'll get into that. Everybody, it's Dave Palmer. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I am so excited to get into this. I don't even know where to start. I think I'm going to start with your resume. So I got Backyardigans. You were an animator, director, producer. Go to IMDb, look up Dave Palmer, and you'll see what credits, because it's hard to. He was a director on this one, but he did 37 episodes of producing in this one, and this one, and this one. Look him up. Backyardigans, Blues Clues, Hello Jack, which is the Apple TV show, Santiago the Sea, Shimmer and Shine, Wally Kazam. And then before the podcast started, Natalie wasn't in the room. I said, I want to talk to you about Beavis and Butthead. That must have been your first gig. And tell Natalie what you said about Beavis and Butthead.
I don't think I worked on that. I don't have any recollection of working on it, and I think it was just one of those, because there are other credits on IMDb that I didn't do, so I just chalk it up to, it was just somehow their wires got crossed and they gave me a credit for something I didn't really do. And other people have said, "Oh man, I love that, I love that movie," and I always have to say, "Oh, that's terrific," but I don't think I worked on it at all. I was young then. It was so long. I mean, we're going back what, 20 something years. So either my memory is completely failing me, or that's their mistake.
Well, I mean, what could it have been? You said you're in the same office though, right? The same building.
Yeah, the MTV Animation was right in the same building as us when we were doing Blues Clues, and I knew some of those guys, and and they would come up to the Blues Clues floor sometimes, and we would go down there and hang out, and so the only thing I could think is that I did a little freelance work and got a couple credits on something that I've since forgotten, because when I was those were my first days in the industry. I went to NYU to get a grad degree in animation, because when I got out of my undergrad school, which was Ithaca College, grade school, I just didn't have any professional contacts, and I needed, I really wanted to break into the industry. So I went to NYU. That led to Blues Clues, and I was in my mid-20s. I was working all the time. We would be at the studio all day, every day, to make that show, and so it's all kind of a blur. So.
So let's go back up. High school, were you into art in high school? I mean, art class all through?
I remember moving when I was in second grade and making friends because I could draw stuff, in second grade. I just always had, I always had a little ability to draw, and that kind of became my thing. I spent a lot of time in art classes, took all the art classes I could through, high school. And in high school, I, thought maybe I could make a career in animation, kind of like, but I grew up in upstate New York. I didn't know anybody in show business. It seemed like a dream, it seemed impossible, but I knew that Ithaca College had a great film program and it had a little bit of animation training as well. So I thought, well, I'll go there and I'll get a kind of a well-rounded education and learn everything I can about animation. And that was a great first, kind of introduction to the history of it and the craft of it. I'm still friends with my professor from Ithaca, Carl Staven, who is now in Pennsylvania teaching, and he taught me so much. But again, not having any professional contacts, NYU was really the way that I met John Canemaker there, who's a animation historian, Oscar-winning animation historian now, and doing 2 years there, learning from, one of the greats, was just, life changing. I got to meet, two of these nine old men from Disney there. We saw so many films, and it was great to, be around so many other people that love the craft too, so yeah, I took a shot at, kind of parlaying that, that interest in art at an early age into, animation. And the more I learned about it, the more I tried it, the more I loved it, because it kind of combined everything, not just the art side of it, but the music and the editing and the storytelling and the, kind of the emotional connection you can make with an audience through film was just so compelling to me. So, um, I just the more I did it, the more I loved it.
Were you one of those kids that made those little flip books that had the
Every
cards?
textbook, yep.
No, that was always
Every,
fun to pass down one of those textbooks. You're like, hey, look at that.
So Natalie has no voice, guys. Sorry, she has no voice. But yeah, she said she got those flip books when she would go to college, and she'd buy a book, and she said she'd flip through the pages. She was so awesome, like a surprise.
yeah, I used
Yeah.
to love that. I used to, little guys dancing in the corner of your textbook, luckily I was a good note taker. You never did that? No, it's so much fun. And yeah, I was a big note taker, so all my notes were doodled with little cartoons and stuff. So really at that, once I learned the craft of it much later, all those years of drawing silly pictures really paid off. They actually finally had meaning, and I put a little, structure behind them.
So I know magic, but I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to go to Art Institute of Pennsylvania because I wanted to do movie magic. My dad had a video store, so I loved horror movies. And then Terminator 2 came out when I was in high school, and I'm like, well, it's all CGI. I cannot sit behind a desk 18 hours a day. I have to go. That would feel like prison to me to sit at a desk. So while I was going to art classes in college, my teacher made me draw like 40 hours of homework on to-go items. Just draw it. Make sure you show 40 hours of detail into that. And I was so disgusted, bored. I gotta go. I can't. That's one picture. I can't put 40 hours of homework in there. So I put stick figures walking out from the bottom of the thing. It was awful. It was bad. And she just killed every dream I had. Did you have any teachers that you didn't like in art that just brutalized you in a type of art that you didn't like?
I had some real tough professors at Ithaca, but I grew to love them, and one of them, Danny Guthrie, is a photo professor who, again, I'm still, in contact with him on Facebook and whatnot. He taught me so much about composition and things that I use every day, but his critiques were brutal, and I had to grow a thick skin, and thankfully I did, because my career now is a lot about hearing no again and again and again, and I really feel like that experience helped me just shake it off. Like, the work will save you, just keep working. So I grew to appreciate Danny's critiques, but man, at first, I would, my jaw would drop, and he would just call you out in the middle, in front of everybody, and talk about what you did wrong or what he didn't like. And then when I went to NYU, that was a much nicer, strangely enough, that was grad school. And I thought, oh, it's really going to get real now. But John Canemaker, was not that way, and it was very supportive, and it was, much friendlier. Yeah, no, I had some tough professors. Some, you're in school long enough, you're going to have some professors that don't like you. So I had those experiences, but I always, it never dissuaded me. If one had pulled me aside and said, you'll never make it, it's something, but I don't know that I would have listened, but that would have been the only thing that could have really affected me. Getting, poor grades, I just saw it all as, I'm here to learn, I'm here to get better at this craft. There's hundreds of years behind me, and of other people have done it better. Let me learn from them, So yeah, I don't think even now, I'm 25 years into my career, and I've had some tough moments, and I still want to get up every day and do what I'm doing. You know, it just doesn't, I'm not, I just don't care about, you know, those obstacles. I just, luckily I can compartmentalize them as that was that, right? It has nothing to do with me. It's either that person's opinion or yeah, what I did stink. You know what I mean? Like, but I could do better. You know what I mean? Like, just focusing on the work of it all.
So, so what is your work entail now? I know that I've followed I love Simpsons. So the Simpsons sent everything overseas, and they had all the illustrators do everything over there. Is Blue's Clues more on the computer? You're not hand drawing it; it's done on the computer, and you're animating
Yeah.
it that way,
I
or
mean, that
or you have to draw it first.
Blue's Clues was my first gig, and really in a lot of ways the best experience I had as a director and a producer, because it was all, we would draw in Photoshop but then incorporate everything into After Effects and animate it all in After Effects, which is a piece of software anybody can get at their local, you know, computer store. And it was, so, you know, things started as drawings for the animation, but then we would texture them and then we would have computer files that we would use. So it was all done in-house. At the end of Blue's Clues' run, I mean, we had two directors, each with a team of animators, and we were all in the same room. It was the best gig as a supervising director and producer, because I could just walk over to an animator, look at what they're doing, say, do it a little more like this. And they would know exactly what I meant, and they could fix it and then just go. You know, and it feels like, and so that was 1996. That was a long time ago, and things have come a long way technology wise. And it feels like every job I got after that, the team moved farther and farther away. When we were doing Backyardigans, the team was in Canada. And when we did Wally Kazam, the team was in Bangalore, India. You know, it's much more of a global industry now. You know, and yeah, so that Blue's Clues was a rare and really wonderful experience for that reason. So now, I mean, the show I'm working on now is being done in Canada. It is a lot of remote work, you know, and thankfully, you know, in a lot of ways, thankfully so, because during the pandemic, nothing really slowed us down. You know, we could just keep creating the stuff we were creating, you know. And I know that there are still places that do hand-drawn art out there. A lot of it is digital at some point of the process now. And a lot of
So,
independent animators still work by hand too.
so the first run started in '96. You were there from day one of Blue's Clues.
Yeah, I worked on the pilot the summer before I graduated from NYU. I
Wow.
co-designed Blue. Yeah, I met the creators, Tracy Todd and Angela Santamero, and Tracy Page Johnson, Todd Kessler, and Angela Santamero, and through one of my professors, actually. So one of my professors had a business where he got the gig to do the pilot. He hired me because I was doing some work in his class that he thought was interesting, and so we worked one summer. We just, you know, there's maybe 5 of us on it. We did the pilot. The show got picked up, and they were in production while I was finishing at NYU. And you know, I kind of thought after NYU I would come out to LA where I am now and work in features or something, but I really hit it off with the folks from Blue's Clues, and they convinced me to stay. So so I kind of developed the animation system they were using for Blue's Clues, that a lot of the early animations of Blue. And so then I just stayed on as an animator, but quickly kind of rose through the ranks. I started directing after a few months, and then over the course of years, we did that show for, I think, 9 years. I was on that show, which is an incredible run for, you know, for somebody in our business. You know, it's I was very, very lucky. But over those 9 years, I kind of worked my way up to producing and having more agency on the show. So yeah, I was really there from the, you know, not the first day, because obviously that was, you know, the creators of the show, you know, were there first, but you know, I was there about as early as you could have been, and stayed right up to the end. You know, worked a little. We had a little spin-off we did at the end that had puppets in it. I directed one of those, and that was, you know, I would have worked on that show forever. I really loved, and we had a great mission. The people were great. It was hard work, but it was really fun to work on something that had such a great response from the audience, and I just knew we were doing good work. You know, I thought, you know, just for that audience, we were giving them something really, really crafted for them, and something that could really, you know, help them, and not only learn stuff, but feel rewarded and feel empowered. And that was really, the main mission was, make them laugh and make them feel empowered that they can do anything.
My little nephew was born in '95. I mean, that was his sweet spot. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, blues and singing the song, mailbox, mailbox, and going to get the mail, and it's mail time. I remember all of that just from him because it was
Yeah.
always on.
Yeah.
So was the show originally like canceled or done just because the original human character wanted to retire? That's the rumor?
We switched. So Steve was the first host, and he was amazing. And he did. I forget how many episodes he did. He must have done 100. And then he wanted to move on. It was a big responsibility to be that character at that time. It was a hugely popular show, and I remember standing outside. We were working in a building right in Times Square at the time, and I was standing outside with him, and because the character's name and his name are the same, when people saw him, they would just yell Steve, and they would just get his attention. So he always had to be ready to put on that persona, and I think, you know, really it's his story to tell, and I think he's done interviews where he's talked about it, but it it got to be where he he felt like he wanted to try other things and maybe give up that responsibility a little bit. He makes a joke, I know, about losing his hair at the time. He didn't want to do that on TV. But it could be all those things. But he was amazing. And then what we did, we transitioned to my buddy Donovan Patton came in to play Joe, Steve's brother. And so we did like 3 transition episodes, and then we did another season or so with Donovan as the host. And then we stopped making them after a season. I think we did 6 seasons or something like that.
So with the transition episodes, they were introducing him. Steve was introducing Joe to the audience.
Yep.
I missed
Yep.
all.
Oh, you did? Oh, we
those.
did a big special. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, it was like, here's my brother Joe. He's going to come in. And then Steve was going to college. The story was that Steve, the character, was going to college. We visited the college, and Blue knew he was going to college. And then Joe was going to stay with Blue as Steve went off and did his thing. And it's been fascinating too, because they did the reboot with a new host named Josh, who's incredible. Also, they're all 3 of them are so talented, and seeing Steve and Donovan and Josh all acting together, it's like almost 3, not generations, but 3 iterations of that host working together is so much fun to watch. So Donovan was great to work with. We're still friends. It's like, that's the great thing about this business, is sometimes you make your best friends in the trenches.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So tell me, is all of them computer done now, or do you actually hand do any of them anymore? That's just
the
not
stuff
done
I
anymore.
work on, I know that there's hand-drawn stuff being done out there in the world of animation. It's not done as much. So I know that across the Spider-Verse movies are those are, I think there's got to be some hand-drawn animation incorporated into the digital stuff that they do. I don't know if you've seen those. They're masterpieces. I would definitely check those out. But the stuff I worked on, my whole career, again, going back a long time, has been in preschool. And so we did Blue's Clues, in computers. But then, starting with Backyardigans, I think every single show I've done has been basically CG animated, kind of like in that, 3D style of like Pixar films and stuff like that. So, and that's, what I'm currently working in now, is that format. And will I always, work in that mode? I'm not sure. It's funny because sometimes, techniques go in and out of favor. So, CG is huge. Once Pixar films got so popular and Disney shifted from 2D to 3D, I feel like everybody was like, oh, this is the way to do animation, and to me, I'm style agnostic. It doesn't matter to me as long as the story is great, the art is beautiful, it has heart, all those great elements that you need from a story. I will work in 2D hand-drawn stuff, CG, a mix of it. I'll animate with clay. It doesn't matter to me at all. But I would say most productions now are either 3D or 2D computer art, basically.
So
computer generated.
I know technology gets cheaper every single year. But I feel like I remember Jimmy Neutron was like $1 million an episode because it was all computer done. Is that crazy? Is
Oh,
that a
interesting.
crazy rumor I've heard?
Yeah, that I would love to know what it cost back then because you're going back a few years too. You know, I think, I think that's one of the reasons why it is expensive to do because it takes so long to do. It's time intensive. All animation really is, at a certain level of quality. And so I think that's why the industry has become more of a global industry because you could, the cost of doing animation in India is much, much less than hiring that same number of animators here in America, right? And then if the buyer thinks the quality is just as good, then they can save millions of dollars doing that, So, the stuff that I've worked on, the budgets don't get anywhere near $1 million an episode. That could be because it's preschool. That could be because, of the style, I'm not really sure, but it is an expensive art form. It takes so many people and it takes so long to do it well. That's where all your money goes, just just in terms of payroll, week after week after week of people generating art.
But once you have Blue walking on stage, entering stage left, putting his arm up, or saying, "Hey, it's mail time," you have that. Do you have to do it again?
You know, reuse is what you're talking about. We call it reuse, and reuse is key to
Yes.
any process, right? And so you want to be able to reuse as much as you can. The thing, and you reuse walk cycles and things like if a character has a default pose when they're just standing and listening, you could reuse that stuff. And you want to reuse as much as you can, but great stories with compelling characters over time, you're gonna need new stuff every time, So the stuff on Blue's Clues, yeah, we had all her barking and running and wagging her tail, all that already done. But then we'd see the script, and it's like Blue plays the trumpet. All right, well, somebody draw us a trumpet, and I guess we'll animate that, or Blue is wearing a cowboy hat, and so the stories always have specifics in them, and that's where you put your time and money, and that and hopefully you're doing a mix of reuse and original stuff every episode, and that keeps the quality high because you can spend more time on every frame. But in television, the at least in my experience, the budgets are tight and the schedules are tight. So you need every minute you can get just to do the animation that's original per episode. And the thing about
So,
it is,
so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, even say you're gonna use a walk cycle for a character, right? You have a default walk cycle, which is that, just the mechanics of them walking. But the thing about animation is you're always dealing with two things: the internal and external forces on that character, right? So you can animate a character walking along. Now they're walking and it's windy, right? And that's the external forces on them. It's windy, or they're walking uphill, and that changes the body, right? And then you have to add internal forces. How are they feeling about this? Are they angry that it's so windy and they're walking uphill? That's going to change it even more. So, the default walk is really only the basis upon which you hang all this additional specificity to tell the story you're trying to tell, right? You have to work out, kind of if it's a quadruped, does it walk like a cat? Does it walk like a deer? Does it, or something else? You have to work it out in terms of the generalities. But in the scene, it's, well, that guy's carrying a heavy box. He's going to lean back. His arm's going to be straight, but we can use maybe he's sliding his feet. How heavy is it? Is he talking over his shoulder? You got to turn his shoulders a little bit. It changes every time. And
It sounds,
that's why, yeah.
it sounds like you have no reuse. It sounds like you're changing it so much there'd be no reuse. Because, I mean, do you keep the raw footage or do you keep the edited footage? It's all done for the reuse. You have to keep it raw. Or do you have
Yeah.
files? Who keeps
Yeah.
all that? That's got to be somebody's. I wouldn't want that job. That's a lot to keep up with.
On Blue's Clues, we had an archivist who would catalog every prop we made, everything we needed for the show, because not only are you reusing animation, or you're reusing locations and props as well, right? So all that had to be cataloged. In terms of props, it's like trumpets and cups and spoons and rocks and grass and flowers and whatever. And so he would, hashtag or what, I don't know how, I'm not an archivist, but he would organize it in some way, so he could find the stuff. So somewhere, I don't know what happened to any of that stuff. Somewhere there are, gigabytes of information of everything we made for Blue's Clues. And I'm sure that's true for every show that I've worked on. It's like somebody has that library that you could go into it and be like, I need that sailboat from episode 3, and somebody could find it for you. It takes a massive amount of memory, computer memory to like, handle it all, render it all and then store it. So yeah, it's pretty
But theirs
it's
is in
big.
a file bank somewhere. We worked on the carbon arrow effect, and they were filing everything away, every prop he used, and putting in a warehouse. When you're dealing with baskets, boxes, and TVs that did a trick, and they had to build all these props, and the protein container where we turned a mouse into a giant rat. I mean, they kept all of that in the warehouse.
His takes up less space.
His takes up much less space, and he's got a lot more footage. He had a lot more successful years run too. So did you do the television shows and not the television shows, the movies and all the one-off specials of Blue's Clues as well? Were you on everything of Blue's Clues?
Up until we wrapped that 6th season, yeah, or after Blue's Room, which was the puppet spinoff. So we did a feature. We did 2 feature-length specials that weren't for theaters, right? So and then we did a lot of little things too, like little bumpers and sometimes a commercial or two. Kind of all that was handled by our team. Yeah, so I worked on every episode. There might have been, because I was finishing up school right as they were starting. Yeah, but I think I worked on every single episode. And then, and I was luckily and thankfully able to consult on the reboot, when they recently restarted it, because they were using different tools than we use, but the creators were still interested in having that same feel from that classic version. So I could meet with that team and say, well, this is kind of how we did it. And they could find their own kind of like happy medium, because they were using much more expensive and better equipment than we were using. I mean, back when we were doing that show, we were using consumer grade stuff that you could just go to any computer store and buy, and we would sometimes you'd be on the overnight shift rendering out your shot, and because your computer would crash. So you'd wait and it would go blink, and you go, oh, it crashed, and you'd set it back a frame and keep going. That would crash again. You'd just be there until 3, 4 in the morning until it was done. And then in the morning, you'd give the editor like 6 pieces of a shot and be like, there you go, good luck, So we were definitely not using the finest stuff, but we were also, nobody was doing a show like we did that show. We kind of created that process from beginning to end in real time as we were doing that show, that's why partly it was a great learning ground for how to do animation production, kind of figuring out every piece of it.
Wow, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. You mentioned briefly, you said, you're not opposed to doing claymation. Have you worked on claymation?
I did a little stop motion in college, but I've never worked in it professionally.
Okay.
That takes a lot of patience.
I don't have the patience for that. I know I don't.
Okay.
Setting in an office for 18 hours. That's setting in an office for 36 hours. He's only moved that far. That's it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And the tools are so much better now, because you can use computers to show you kind of like where you've been and where you're going, I think. And I think there are some additional tools you can use. But back when I was learning it, you'd get halfway through a shoot and you'd trip and kick the light. And so then when you saw the footage later, like the character would be walking along and then it would get dark because that's where you kicked the light and you couldn't go back, unless you could go back to the very beginning if you get hours in. So it takes a lot of patience. And I'm totally in awe of those people, who do that kind of work. I love, if you watch, you can find clips of the animators from like Kubo and the Two Strings, which is just an amazing movie, animating, right? So they were filming the animator in, kind of like sped up. And so you can see the model animating, but then you see this blur of the animator moving around them. And I just love that stuff. Like, I'm just so amazed, that they're so good at it.
Oh, I'm going to Google it after this. What's it called?
Kubo and the Two Strings. Kubo, Kubo. And the Two Strings. Oh, that's a gorgeous movie. It's a little bit spooky, so depending on how brave your kids are, it might not be for your kids, but it's a great story and beautifully told.
My
Yeah.
kids can tell it. Yeah. If
Okay, good.
not, they'll grow up quick. I grew up in a video store. My dad let me watch anything growing up, and Natalie doesn't agree with it, but we're a little more liberal in our house. So it's
What
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
what was
sometimes they
the
up in the middle of the night when they have nightmares. See
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
right.
They wake her up.
Through it.
Yeah.
I have to deal with
Right,
that.
right.
So I'm like, oh, let's watch Gumby instead if you want to do it.
Right. What was the earliest like scary thing you remember? So, like how young were you when you saw like something really scary that, you remember?
Oh, I mean, Friday the 13th came out, what, 84? I was born in 77. I remember, and what's funny is now that I love magic so much, I don't remember the magic in the movie The Terror Train. But I know my parents took me to see that, and I think that was 82. We saw it in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt had a house and a train was in her backyard. So I didn't remember the movie. I don't remember the people getting stabbed. I don't remember any of that. But I remember there's a killer on the train. And every time that train went by the dinner table, we were in the dining room hanging out with my aunt. Every time the train would go by, I would be holding on to my mom's leg. Just, there's a killer on the train. I know there is. I saw the movie. So I didn't remember how it ended. I just remember there's a killer on the train. That's all I remember. I was way too young. Yeah, I didn't even get it.
To
I
this
didn't even
day,
understand
he's never been on a train. He's only cars or planes. Like I've just ruled
Have I
that
been on
out.
a train? Not with you. But Copperfield was in that movie, and I don't even remember Copperfield in the movie. Isn't that crazy? Like you'd
Yeah,
think that would be my memory of the movie.
yeah.
Oh, I own it now. I love it now. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, that's too young probably. I should have been watching Blue's Clues.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
But kids select that
so
stuff. Like a certain kind of person will select that stuff when they're a little kid. So
my little
they'll go
girl,
looking for it.
my
Yeah.
little girl is 11, and she's really dipping her toe into trying to get more. She still has nightmares. She still comes and tells mommy I had a bad dream. But she's reaching for it more. She wants it more. She likes that scare factor. She likes, but then ask her to go collect wood or go let the dog in after dark. And no, 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 no. It's just a kid being a kid. It's adventurous. It's
I remember talking to
fun.
my
The
youngest.
thrill of
Yeah. Yeah, it's watching your kids struggle with that or it's not struggle, but like my youngest, I remember having a conversation with him because he's the type of kid that has trouble walking around the house when it's dark at night. And and I was the same way as a kid, but I said, how lucky you are because your imagination is so good. You can make yourself believe there's something there that's not there. Like you know how rare that is that somebody can imagine that strongly, like that. And I'm like that, and I have trouble walking around the house at night sometimes because I can make myself believe anything, and but that just shows that's a strength. You know what I mean? How lucky you are that you can do that because you can imagine anything now. That that you can do
What
that.
awesome twist!
That's awesome. That is a great twist.
Me,
Yeah.
I'm just downstairs. Like, Anna, just go get it. It's right downstairs. You're like, that's a great thing. I'm like, that's a positive twist.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool.
Yeah. You're making movies in your head and you're making yourself feel those feelings. That's why that's why I love filmmaking. It's like, you're only, to make somebody believe that a story that's just flashing by at 24 pictures a second, so much that they laugh or cry or they're scared. I mean, that's a different kind of magic as far as I'm concerned. It's like, and in appreciating how, that about yourself. It's like, it is putting a positive spin on it because, I want them to get over it too, be able to walk around in the world, but I do believe that it is, not everybody can do that. It's cool.
We watched the Guardians of the Galaxy with Rocket Raccoon, and just it was so tear jerking. We've watched it twice now, and I'm like, I don't know that I can watch it a third time. It's just too much emotional for me. I love it. I love the story. The guy that directed it, the guy that put it all together, the animation's beautiful. They pull me in, but it pulls me, hurts so much, and he wins, and it. But during that part, it's just I'm so hurt, and I'm like, God.
Are you talking about that part? There's a part where Rocket Raccoon is talking to that guy, the blue guy with the fin on his head, about his past It might have been in the sequel or something. I can't remember, but I remember watching a scene with Rocket Raccoon and the guy, I forget the name of the character, Yondo or something like that. He's
Yeah.
blue and he's got that fin, right? And I'm getting choked up, and I'm like, what artistry? You've laid every, you're building this cathedral of story, and you've laid every brick perfectly that I can watch a guy with a bunch of makeup and a fully CG animated raccoon talking, and I'm like, oh, it's just getting me right here. I mean, that's so cool.
And I love it, but I don't think I could do a third time.
Aw.
It's like watching my own dog die. It
Aw.
hurts. It sucks, man. Yeah. But that's awesome. That's awesome storytelling. That is beautiful. Yeah. I can appreciate that side. I definitely can appreciate it. So let me get morbid for a second. What do you think about AI in your job?
Yeah,
with everybody right in Hollywood and everybody, and you have the stuff that you're remaking. You call it, what does he call it? The saves, the reuse. You have the reuse. So what's that AI just filling in the gaps with the reuse? I mean,
yeah, but the thing that AI can't
is that
do
scary?
Yet, yeah, I mean, where it could go is scary to me, not where it is, because the thing is about AI now is that it's just it scrapes the information out there, and it's great at shuffling the stuff that's already out there into something new, right? So if you tell AI to write you a story, it's going to take pieces of everything that it sees out in the world and create a story for you. But what it can't do that a human would do is want to tell a story for a reason. That's, so I'm not afraid of it right now, because when I tell a story, I want to pull at your heartstrings for a reason. I'm trying to, the theme is, reconnecting with your past in a way that you can process, or, or let's talk about how, what our hopes for the future are, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And AI is not doing that yet. AI can only spit out what you put into it by taking what's already out there. Now, if it's training exponentially, right? So if AI gets to the point where it could wake up one day and say, I want to tell a story about X because I would love to show how, sometimes parents make mistakes, and those mistakes are carried forward by their children multiple generations, or whatever it is, then I'm scared, because now it's doing the work of a human and telling stories for a reason. On the art side, I have friends that are script writers, and they like using it as kind of a mood board. So if they're writing a gothic horror thing, and with a little twist, and they want to put some art into a package to pitch it, it's they feel like it's okay to have AI generated art in a pitch, because then you're not really using that art for production, right? It Some people disagree with that, and don't think it should be, if it's pulling pieces from other copywritten art, other art from other artists, it shouldn't be used at all. So it's one of those things that I feel like we're just going to have to deal with. On the other hand, we've seen all the movies where AI learns enough to try to eradicate humans, right? Like we've seen those movies, like every time they're like, we've made great gains in AI, and look, here's a robot that can walk around on its own. I'm like, stop! Haven't you, I feel like we've seen it before, but that's, humans are like that. We kind of blithely go forward.
Yeah, she's saying life imitates art. She said life imitates art. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and there's an eater robot, EATR, I think. But what it does, it eats carbon for fuel, so it never needs to be solar powered or anything. But humans are making carbon, so it can go out there and it can right. So it can.
It's horrible.
It needs fuel, so it can actually clean up a battlefield, supposedly. Yeah, do research on it. He Googled it and looked it all up. But I mean, that's what they invented. They invented a robot that can eat tree, and it can eat all the other stuff, but it can also eat dead animals and whatever to stay alive. It never has an oil change, never has to have solar or gas power. It just needs carbon to live.
That's so crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
People are funny, right?
Let's talk about Blue's Clues.
Right. Well, so, in terms of your question, though, just to say, like the WGA and SA and SAG, the changes that were made to those contracts to say that something has to be written by a human and something has to be, drawn by, or acted by a human being. I think these are good things to put in place now to kind of like make some rules about how it can be used in a commercial way. So just to
So
finish answering that
we don't
question.
know. I heard it's all over. It's kind of ended, but I didn't know anything. So the only thing I've heard is that like Disney was using like CGI extras like abundantly. Is
Yeah.
that still gonna happen?
I think they can use CGI extras, but the what the one of the points of contention was that they were saying if you're a background actor, we could scan your body, we'll pay you for the day to scan your body, and then we just get to use your likeness forever in perpetuity for no pay. And that obviously is the worst idea ever, for those actors. So I think they put limits on that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what the particulars are. I did hear that there was specific language put in that scripts have to be written by a human, and the actors in a film have to be human actors or something like that. Don't quote me, but I think that's good. I mean, I think it's good to put some limits on that stuff to you know and I know there's going to be some group of people that only want to see computer generated stuff, and
Right.
that should be available to them too. But for for the people who don't want that, and for those of us who make our living like this, it's good to protect it a little bit.
I don't know what you said. What did you say? Oh, so as far as what we got all this stuff. She's talking a microphone. Sorry.
Sure.
What are your favorite cartoons? What inspires you?
Ah,
Not just your own stuff. What do you find yourself watching?
well, when I was a kid, obviously the Disney stuff, and then um, I felt like Looney Tunes, Bugs. I was a big Bugs Bunny fan, kind of like just the artistry and the humor of those things. That's those two things are the things that got me on this path. Lately, though, I'm really loving again the Spider-Verse movies that Sony is doing. The Miles Morales movies are just fantastic and just gorgeous. The stuff that Pixar is doing just in terms of the craft is amazing. And I love the stop motion films that Leica is doing. And, and things like, Nightmare Before Christmas, I kind of like it all. And, and then on the TV side, things like Samurai Jack, I really loved. I don't know if you've ever seen that. That's just a gorgeous series. Or Avatar, of course, everyone's, knows about that one. And that's, again, just, kind of at the highest level of both craft and storytelling. Hilda, I really liked on I think that was a Netflix show. That's a gorgeous show, great storytelling. I kind of watch it all, I'm just a fan. So the only reason I stop watching is when I'm trying to write something, because I don't want to cross pollinate things too much. But when I'm between, writing something, like when I finish writing a pitch, then I just binge watch everything. I love anime. I love, preschool stuff. I love 6 to 11 stuff. I like comedies, and I love, The Simpsons. I kind of like it all.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So we're already 45 minutes into this thing. We got a
That
hold
went
of
so
you
fast.
through our publicist. It always is. It always is. And we're pitching a couple ideas to you. But you take pitches from all kinds of people. Tell everybody listening out here they can pitch to Dave Palmer. He wants to hear them. So give us your pitch, Dave Palmer.
Well, the thing is, it's hard to make a show. It's difficult just to make the right contacts and have the right idea at the right time. The whole process is difficult. Animation production is difficult. And, I've been really lucky in my career, and what I like to do now is help people realize their vision. Like we all win when a great show gets made, and I'm happy to talk to people about their projects. I look at people's pitches and I'll give them feedback. Sometimes I partner with people, like yourselves, if that feels like a good fit to try to, co-create something together. But I mean, I'm the type of person who's I'll get on the phone and talk cartoons with anybody, really. So, you know, it, if people have questions, they're welcome to reach out. I think my email is on my website, which is bydavepalmer.com, and they can reach out to me that way. If you have questions about animation, I'm happy to answer them. And And if I can, you know, help somebody get their dream project made, then, you know, I think that's worthy work to do. You know, like we all win when people's, people get their stories out there.
It's one of those things in magic that gets, and I'm sure in a lot of businesses where people get jealous and people do this, but when people win and a show gets huge, it only helps other shows. It helps everybody. Everybody. Yeah. Rising tide raises all boats. Is that what it is?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Something like
I
that.
love it. No, I think you
Yes.
nailed it.
Yeah. So let me see. I got a whole bunch of questions for you though, man. Tell us about your family. You have the same situation we have. You had a older child, then you had twins.
Yep. I have a 15-year-old is my oldest, and I have two 12-year-old twins, boy-girl twins.
Do you have twins in your family?
No.
Wow.
But I don't know if it might be TMI, but my wife was taking something to regulate her ovulation when we were trying to conceive our second child, and the doctor told her there was a 2% chance it would lead to multiples, and so she got on the phone pretty quickly when we found out and let him have it about that 2% chance. But
2%.
you know,
when did you find out though? We didn't find out till 5 months in. When did you find out?
in the ultrasound, because my wife Jenny was, she was pretty big at the time, so I'm not sure how many months we were in. But my wife is very funny, and she made a joke about feeling like a double wide trailer, and the woman doing the ultrasound said, "Well, there are two in there," and she said, "Excuse me, what?" And that's how we found out. It was great. It was great. There are moments in your life where you just have to just let go and just this is happening, and just you're going to do your best. And that was one of those moments for me, where I thought, well, that is not what we expected, that was not the plan, but this is, and now, I can't imagine my life different. It's been just, it does start out difficult, and it gets easier, like a lot of things.
We're in the potty training right now. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Two boys.
Yeah.
But
what trick are you?
Yeah, I mean, we were videotaping for our reality show. We do a little reality show on streaming services and things, and we didn't videotape when the doctor was in. The lady was measuring my wife's belly, and she's like, "This is 5 months in. We're going to see if it's a boy or girl." And I'm like, "That's the head. That's the backbone." My dad wants to play. That's an arm. Yeah. What's it holding? It looks like it's holding a ball. And the lady said, "That's another head. I'm not qualified for twins." And she left the room. She was out of there. She wasn't qualified to do the measurements because they have to fit in there. They have to make sure things are moved around properly. We were in there 45 minutes waiting for the doctor. So I turned the camera on and I said, "Natalie?" And she said, "Yeah, we'll figure it out, I guess." Well, I guess we'll figure it out. And I got all that on video. It was so great. We did a gender reveal the next day, and it was just
still in shock.
We were in shock. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night, twins are coming. It's scary.
Yeah.
And I was during the pandemic. I was unemployed with twins on the way.
Oh God. Oh yeah, that's tough. Yeah,
So,
you're like us. We don't know. We went from 1 to 3 like that. You go from man to man to zone super fast. Now it's like, you take those two, I got this one. You know what I mean? The park. I don't. I'm sure you guys are. Whenever you go to a store or the park, it's like eyes on everybody.
You do. You really have to. You can't have a conversation with somebody. Yeah. My little girl is 11 though, and she's a huge help. And we have a live-in babysitter that we pay to help when we're on the road and things to help us. But it's hard, man. It's work. It's work, but it's getting easier. It's getting easier. We get them potty, it'll be easier. So yeah.
Milestone.
So what are they into? Do they draw? Do any of them have the knack?
It's interesting. They my oldest, he plays a ton of soccer. He drew a lot as a kid, and he was very good. And and we were like, my wife is an artist too, and we were so proud and encouraging. But then as kids do, they find their own way, and so he kind of fell into soccer in he's a smart kid. He's a real nice kid. All my kids, thankfully, knock on wood, they all seem like nice people. And so, we're, kind of happy. Like my wife is driving him to SoFi Stadium tonight because his team is playing a little scrimmage right in SoFi Stadium tonight. And so he's having a great experience with that, doing great in high school. The twins are, they're both musical. One plays guitar, one plays piano. My youngest boy, he can draw real well, and he likes storytelling. And I've taught him a little animation, which has been real fun. He started for a while. He was making little films with his Lego, like little mini figures, telling stories with that. And I would teach him how to do walk cycles and stuff. And we got him there are some kits you can get out there to do stop motion with kids, but at the end of the day, I think we just set up our iPhones, and now he has his own because he's in middle school, and he could just, take successive pictures, and then I could still bring it into After Effects and do all that Blue's Clues stuff where I can, add, titles and credits and special effects and stuff. So that's been really fun. But who knows, it's so I just love I love watching them just find their thing, because I feel like, you're the same way, that you found your passion so early and you kind of just rode this wave of enthusiasm. And I feel lucky that I found my thing so early, and maybe they will, but it's been fun for me to watch them try stuff and maybe pick something up and then put it down. And, I just feel like it's been really interesting. I secretly hope that they'll love art as much as I do, but animation is a tough business. I don't know that I would wish that on any of them, it's just, you got to be okay with hearing no. And with that, you're the same way. It's like, you have to go out there and fight for your gigs every day. Right. And it takes a lot of fortitude to be able to do that. So
we have, we say we do on average 400 shows a year, and people say, wow, I mean, when are you going to slow down? 2025 is coming around the corner. You got to book those shows. Now, that's all I'm doing. I'm just always get the next shows. And
exactly right.
There's no slowing down.
And you never say no to anything. Yeah. I mean, I've had multiple jobs at the same time because, I've had times that I've had 0 jobs. So when, if you have 2 and somebody's like, can you help me with this thing? I always say yes, right? I'll figure out the timing of it, but I would never say no to work, just for that reason, because let me double up now for those times later where I have a little bit of a dead spot, It's really tricky, but you have to have the passion for it to drive you through those tough moments, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if the kids, I don't know what their thing, what the thing is going to drive them yet. It's going to be fun to find out, though.
And when you can barely hold your eyes open and you're waiting for that video to render, and it's got 4 seconds and then it crashes and you got to wait another hour and a half. I've been there. She's gone to bed, and I come to bed at like 6 in the morning. And I said, finally rendered. I'm finally done. Yeah. We've been there. Not fun. It's getting better though. It's getting better. Golly. So out of everything you've worked on, what have you pitched anything that is like your show, your baby? You got it off the ground, it's yours?
I've never, I made a short when I was at Nickelodeon, but in terms of the shows I've pitched, I've been pitching for years. I've never sold a show, but there's a couple that I'm pitching now that I really, really love and I have high hopes for. I had something in development that it was spooky stories for preschoolers, which I really loved. And I had a lot of research about, why, it's good for kids. And I felt like I found just the right combination of humor and tension, to make it work. And it didn't sell, but now I'm talking to somebody about possibly making it into a kids podcast. And I'm really excited about that. So, I just try to keep creating, I have this idea that we're all trying to live our most creative lives, and mine is just making up silly stories, so I pitch them as they come, and if they don't sell, I just keep on to the next one, so
That's
luckily
awesome.
I love the process. So
you told us at our meeting that each place had a different want. Can you explain that to everybody listening? Like Netflix is looking for story, but Nickelodeon's looking for the child lead or whatever.
It changes all the time. So, that's, one of the things you have to do if you're in this business is keep in contact with those folks to ask them what their white spaces are in terms of shows they're looking for, but also the types of shows they're looking for. So at a certain point, you know, somebody is looking for slice of life comedies like Bluey, right? Whereas somebody else, like a Nickelodeon, is looking, you know, or has in the past looked for things that are, you know, from a kid's point of view with a little bit of a you know, kind of a sassy sense of humor, you know what I mean? So a little bit edgier than the stuff you'd find on PBS. And, you know, and Nick Jr. was very curriculum focused at one time. And they're, you know, they're going more for story driven, character driven stories now, which is kind of like what Disney was doing with their stuff. So it changes all the time, and understanding the current landscape is, you know, one of the parts of the job really, is to stay in touch with those folks. And it's just you just have to reach out and ask, you know, what are you looking for these days, you know? So, you know, for people out there creating their own shows, write something that you're passionate about. Don't try to fit into a box, because it's going to change. Either the company's going to change direction, or the thing you heard that they were looking for is they already have it in development. If you try to hit that moving target, you'll probably never finish anything. Finish the thing that you're doing, and then move on to the next thing and do the next thing. And luckily, and hopefully everything will be a little bit different in tone, you know, with strong characters and different locations, you know? So then when you hear, oh, I'm doing that thing about the Frog Prince, you know, and Netflix has said they only want shows about frogs, you're ready to go with your idea that's perfect for them, right? But it's a very, you know, the landscape's always changing, you know, especially it seems like it's changing faster than ever now. It's hard to predict where it's going to be tomorrow.
How many pitches do you think you've done over the years? Countless.
I mean, things I've written, I must have written, you know, 30 or more shows. I probably pitched, you know, half of them someplace, you know, over the years. You know, and, you know, I've those are completed, you know. I probably started another 30 over the years that, you know, just never, you know, hit, or I got distracted and onto something else, you know. You know, I keep a notebook with, you know, little ideas in it, you know, and a little situation or a little relationship, you know, will be something that will be interesting to me. And sometimes I'll rewrite the same kind of relationship in, you know, 4 or 5 different shows, you know, trying to find the right combination for the right person. You know, I was trying to pitch this thing about like a very young preschool show that had very little dialogue, about a little girl or a little boy who made friends with a robot, right? I think it was an alien at first, right? And then it was like, because they don't speak the same language, right? So I wanted 2 characters that don't speak the same language, that just love each other and have fun. That was kind of like the little seed of that story. And I started it with an alien, and then somebody was like, well, we have enough alien stuff. How about a robot? And so I changed it to a robot. You know, I'm like, I don't care. It could be a chicken and a watermelon. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it just 2 things that are different is the driver of that story, right? And so, you know, sometimes it's like that, where you feel like you're onto something, but you just haven't hit the right details for somebody to buy it. But if it's still compelling to you, you can rewrite it and keep trying, you know?
He changed it
So
to chicken robot so quick. In a million years, you'd ask me to name 2 opposites, and I would never do chicken and a robot. No, sorry, the watermelon would never come out of me. I just wouldn't think of a watermelon being a character. But it's
yeah,
possible in a cartoon. Anything's
for
possible,
sure.
and that's what's amazing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dag on it, dude.
Somebody's
Time
gonna
has
make that
flown
show
by.
now. Good luck
So,
with
what
your
is your?
watermelon show. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. What is the website one more time?
Oh, mine is bydavepalmer.com. BYDAVEPALMER.com is my website. There's a little, you know, you'll find my resume there, and you know, I think my email somewhere on there. But I'm not hard to find if you go looking. And you know, like I said, I'm always happy to hear from people that, you know, love to make cartoons.
Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry she
Thank
wasn't
you.
very, very helpful at all.
I'm sorry
But,
that you're not feeling well.
she's doing good. She just has no voice.
voice.
She has no voice.
Yeah.
But thank you. We'll be in touch. We are just now getting started in our friendship.
Yeah.
And I said this would be a great way to get to know each other because I want to know you and I want to know about it. I feel like I'm ill prepared. Like I still want to know more about the process, but I don't know the questions to ask. So I did the best I could. Thank you.
Over time, we'll talk about it more, I'm sure.
All right, man. That's it for us. All we have left to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.